So today we are together with Christie Ogden, who is a fellow world schooler. First of all, welcome. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you for having
Where,
me.
yeah, where are you right now, Christie? Where are you in the world?
I'm in British Columbia, Canada at the moment. We're in the middle of moving, so I'm sitting outside in somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so next week we're moving to Vancouver Island.
Oh, lovely. How and
Yeah.
uh, is the weather okay there? It looks like you can still be outside.
Yeah, it's getting colder for sure. Like winter's on its way, but it's not here yet.
Yeah. And just before we started the recording, I was like, we met in real life. I feel that we have been in each other's presence for for many years online. And then we were like, no, actually not. But you have been world schooling for many, many years. Can you share how that started in your life?
Okay, so our story is different. Most people, they sell their house and they have this big dream of going to travel. In 2007, I went on a holiday with a friend of mine to Dominican Republic, and I said, "Oh, I'd like to live here." Like you do when you go on holiday, you always say, "Oh,
Oh
I'd
yeah.
like to live here." Um, but like I couldn't figure out how to make that happen at that time. And then in 2010, I was pregnant with my fifth baby, and I wasn't in a good relationship, and you know we were renting this tiny little house and everything was getting cut off. Like our power was getting cut off, everything was getting cut off because I didn't have a lot of money. And I kept thinking to myself, there has to be a better way. Like, I can't just live like this. So one night after the baby was born, I went online, and we have a thing kind of like Craigslist in Canada. And I put on there that I was looking for a school bus, and I was a single mom and I didn't have a lot of money. And I thought, if I get a message back, it's meant to be. If I don't get a message back, well, we'll stay. I got a message back from this guy, and he said, I have a bus for you. So I went and saw the bus. It's the middle of winter. So I can't drive the bus anywhere. I can just get in, turn it on, and see that it runs. And I said, okay. And then we went to his back into his house, kind of, to talk and stuff. And he said, my wife and I were praying before you came, and God told us that you needed this bus. And I'm not religious. And I was like, okay. But they let me take the bus that night and give them $200. And then I made payments on the bus until it was paid off, or
Wow.
$1,000. And then we converted that bus. We lived in that bus all summer. And then winter was coming, and I was like, we are gonna freeze. Like winter in Canada in a school bus, we are gonna freeze. So I called the guy that we had met a guy in the Dominican. He was a tour bus driver. And I called him and I said, hey, I have this idea. I want to move to the Dominican Republic. Can you help me find a place to rent? He said, call me back on Wednesday because they don't do email, or they didn't back then. He's like,
No.
call me back on Wednesday. So I called him on Wednesday. He said, I found you a house. It's $50. You need the rent and a deposit, and I need $50 if you want me to rent a car to pick you up. So I sent him the $150. But after I sent him the $150 and bought tickets for us to go, I had $300 for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
So we get on the plane. I've got a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a baby. And I'm sitting there. My kids are so excited. They're like, yay, we get to go on an airplane. And all I could think was, this has to work because I don't have money to take us back home.
Oh no.
You know,
Yeah.
so we got there, but I had camera equipment because I had been doing photography at home. And so every day we would go to the beach, and I would take pictures of people kite surfing. And then I would take this SD card out, put it on my tablet. And when they came in, I would show them the pictures. I had a little card that I had printed up that said like 3 pictures for $75 or whatever. They would PayPal me the money. I would send them the pictures, totally unedited. And that's what I did for the first 6 months to make money. So like, I didn't have like an online business ready to go or anything like that. I literally went on a wing and a prayer because, you know, I knew there had to be a better life out there than, you know, than barely making it in Canada. So I said, like everybody says, I always say to everybody, you know, my theory was I would rather be destitute on the beach than destitute in Canada in January, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and over the years, you know, I've obviously things have gotten better, and you know, I've managed to come up with businesses and things like that, you know. So
you have 5 children, and you said you left with 3. Is that because the 2 first one were older and
I have 6
on the-
children, and the 2 oldest ones, they didn't want to go at all because my oldest is autistic and he's only cares about horses. And so he chose to live with his uncle who has a whole bunch of horses. And
Right.
he, at that time, he believed that Canada was the only place in the world that has horses. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then his brother stayed with Grandpa, which is his uncle's dad. So they saw each other all the time. And then the 3 little ones came with me. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
That's a wonderful, bold, and courageous step to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little bit crazy now that I think about it, but I don't regret doing it, you know?
No.
No.
Well, we've done our fair share of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Been out there on the edges as well. I know that. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just have to take a leap of faith. And I remember back when we lived in a house in a country with a mortgage and that whole thing, the exact same thought that just has to be a way for this to be better. There has to be a way for us to get out there. And
Right.
yeah, we found it too.
Yeah.
So I
And like
hear you.
when I came back from my vacation in the Dominican Republic, my friend and I were talking, but we were so stuck on, like, our thing was, well, I'd like to live there, but how would I pay my car payment? How would I pay my rent? But it never occurred to us that we could give up the rent and the car payment in Canada and just go. You know,
Yeah.
like we weren't ready yet. You know,
Yeah.
like so many people are like, but how would I give up? You know, how would I do this? How would I do that? But they're not ready to give that up yet, you know?
So we often say that it's all mindset. If you believe you cannot do it, you're right. And if you believe
Exactly.
you can do it, you're right too. So it's actually basically about, and of course, there's this how brave can you be? How much risk can you actually handle? And sometimes you just have to be down on your knees where, you know, for you, if they're cutting off the power and the heating in your place where you're staying in Canada, there's not much to lose to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you'll be, you know, on a beach and have no money. It might be
warm.
more fun than in the cold and have no money. So sometimes we have to let life just push us out there where we, you know, doesn't really matter. And then we get to take the bold choices.
Right.
Get to see
And
the
so
real
many
picture.
people think, like, they go on vacation, and let's say vacation cost them $4,000, you know? And they went on vacation for a week. So they go, well, $4,000 times 4 is, well, there's no way I could make that much money to live while I travel, you know? But you don't need that much money, you know?
No, it's not a vacation. It's life. Today I have one of these moody days, dark days where I'm just like my energy is all low. I woke up and I'm like, oh, is it the balances? Is it the moon? I don't know, but I feel insecure. I feel I'm not doing good enough for my family and for my kids. And then as a parent, you of course get in doubt. And I actually talked with my mom who on the phone, and it was today, and it was quite nice because I talked with her about this insecurity as a parent. And as I said to her, yeah, but I live this kind of different life from many, and I have taken these choices. So I am in doubt if I feel, is it more responsible for my kids and the insecurity as a parent, or, and then my mom just said, oh yes, but I can promise you it's like that also if you took that road we took, which my parents, they, you know, mortgage, house, kids in school, kids in the university, and everything like straight and simple, and family life and all that. And it's the same parental insecurity, which made me feel a little better. But how are you handling this? Oh, have I messed up their life? Will they ever be adult? How have I done it? And I'm in that mode today, so that's why I took up this subject.
It's easier for me with my two littles. My two littles are 10 and 13 because I have 4 adult kids who have already made it. So
Yeah.
I know that it works. You know what I mean? And so it's easier for me because I'm like, okay, well, I did the same thing with the big kids and they're fine. So
Yeah.
pretty sure the little kids will be fine, you know?
So maybe you should just look at we have a 25-year-old daughter who has made it,
Yeah.
quote
Yeah.
unquote. She
Yeah,
has what
but she
looks
was
like
she was in school some of the time.
school.
No, I know, I know.
Thing to do with her making it. She's an artist. It really has nothing to do
No,
with
I
her
know.
making it.
Right.
It was 100%
Right.
herself and maybe like 1 gram of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way I feel. Like I don't feel that I created whatever they have now. They did that, you know, but I supported them in their passions and interests, and kind of, instead of, oh, that's really nice that you're really interested in horses, but we need to sit down and do math today, you know, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I was about to say you didn't create it, and I feel the same about my adult daughter. I didn't create that she is now a published author, and but I did create the space for her to unfold herself so that she could become what
Right.
she always wanted to be. And you did that. I mean, we created that space together, and we held that space for her, and in that way, of course, it means something. I think for those dark days, if I can also
Oh yes.
what you really need is community. So even this conversation, talking to a fellow world schooler, and we happen to live with other world schoolers right now, and just reaching out and be vulnerable and talk about how you can sometimes be full of fear and also feel kind of lonely, because a lot of people looking at our lifestyle, they look at it and they what they see is, you know, the highlights, the freedom, the landmarks, the mountaintops, the art museums, and you know, the beach time, but they don't see the struggles, they don't see the loneliness, they don't see the just the everyday, you have to fix your motor, or you don't have a legal address, so you might have trouble with all kinds of changing your phone number or whatever you need, and all these things. And if the fear shows up about what about the children's lives, what about their network, what about their education, what about their future, who do you talk to? Because
Exactly.
95% of the people you can talk to, they will tell you, maybe you should make sure they get a high school degree, you know, and then you're back to
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is too, like, we're in Canada now, and I still am in contact with all my friends I had way back when, but we don't live the same life. So if I call them and say, you know, I'm really unsure because, you know, we bought this boat and I want to do this, and they'll be like, well, you know, you could just come back. You could just buy a house, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, but you
And I'm
can't.
like, yeah,
The
that's not an
problem.
option,
But
you know.
that's, I mean,
Uh,
what does
So
it even mean when people say you could just come home? I mean, I was just reading Salman Rushdie, the Satanic Verses again, and he says somewhere about the Abrahamic culture, like the original Christian, not well, original nomads from the Bible. You know, home is the journey. Home is the
Yeah.
movement. Home is that you keep changing the location. That is home. And when our friends and family from our country of origin, they tell us, well, when are you coming home? Or, you know, it's just, or this, you know, you could just come home. I'm like, I am home. And that's the
Right.
change that has happened to us. We just passed the 6-year mark, I realized today. Not that we passed it today, but I realized today that I didn't notice when it was 6 years since our bus started driving. And something has fundamentally changed. There's no coming home
No.
for me.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought it might just be a year and I could get it out of my blood and then go back, but it just never happened, you know?
No.
You
And
sometimes talk about like settling down, like saying, oh, what about if we slow down a little bit? Or what about if sometimes we go out this fantasy road and it just never happens. Never
right,
happens.
right. Well, I am like we are ready to buy a boat.
Mhm.
And we almost bought one, but then it wouldn't pass inspections for insurance and stuff like
Okay,
that, so we
yeah.
backed out. But anyway, but I'm so proud of myself because I'm almost ready to buy a boat, which to me is a home. And
Yeah.
like I have never committed to that in 13 years. Like, you know, it's always been like, oh, but if I buy that, then I have to stay there and I have to commit to that for like the rest of my life. And that just seems so scary, you know?
Mhm.
Like,
But a boat is a little bit like a bus or a van.
yeah.
You
But
can move a
like
boat.
we were talking about maybe buying land in Mexico. And I said, yeah, maybe I could do that. And then a couple weeks later, I'm like, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
There's no wheels involved in land. Yeah.
And
You
you
can't
buy
move it.
that land and then you're committed to stay there because you got to look after it. You got to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
all these things, right? And I'm like, but if I wanted to stay in one spot, I could just, you know, get a place in Canada and stay in one spot, you know?
I have frequent nightmares about buying a house.
Yeah.
It's true. If I have a
Yeah.
nightmare, it's very often that we by accident bought a house and now I have to stay there. And equally, the house is full of stuff. There's just stuff everywhere, boxes of things and stacks of plates
I have
and
dreams like that where I'm like wading through some hoarder's house, you know, moving stuff out of the way to try and get through to find what I'm looking for. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, you know.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
I, I consider if people would look at nomads like us as kind of restless souls and having this, but why don't you slow down and find yourself? And I actually think that on these travels, have found myself. I feel a great and bigger peace than before, but I also love to explore. We just talked with a woman today who we met in Istanbul. And just talking with her, I was like, oh, imagine living 3 months in Istanbul, not for life, but just dipping yourself deep down into the culture. That sounds like a big yes from me and my wife.
Yes, that's
And
where we're going.
That's what we
that's,
do, you know,
yeah,
and that's the best way,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
yeah. I think we sometimes have traveled a little too fast and we are trying to learn to slow down. What is your travel schedule? Kind of, is there a rhythm? And with a rhythm, it
The
can
rhythm
both
is
be.
whenever I get itchy feet, we go. But but like normally the least we've spent in a place is 3 months, just because my 13-year-old is autistic and he doesn't do fast travel very well. We tried it once and he just didn't manage well. Like we tried like 1 week here and then we're on a plane and we're going here, or a bus and going here, and he
Yeah.
just doesn't do well with that.
Mm.
So we stay minimum 3 months, but usually it's 6 months or more.
Nice.
Yeah.
And also make everything more affordable, longer term rent, and you get to know the good local farms or the local shops and everything. I like that a lot.
Well,
We
and we
just never do
usually,
it.
right, we usually rent in small villages because they're cheaper. And
Mm.
like in 13 years of world schooling, I have rented one Airbnb and I was not thrilled with it, so I won't do it again.
Mm.
And so we just find like local places, and I've never paid more than $300 a month. And sometimes on Airbnb, it's like, $1,300 a month. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy,
Yeah.
Mm.
But being in
Well,
those
sometimes
small
it's way more.
villages, what's that?
Sometimes it's way more.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but being in those small villages, my kids can go outside and play with the kids, and they're totally accepted because we're there for a longer period of time, so it works out really well.
And for beginners out there, how do you find places?
I've done it a few ways. The most ingenious way was we were in, where were we? Anyway, we were in, I don't remember where we were, but I was walking around looking for rent signs. And every time I would call, they wouldn't understand me. So there was a local guy just kind of standing around, and I said, hey, and he said, hi. I said, do you speak English? He said, yes. I said, if I give you the equivalent of $20, will you call this number and ask them how much it is for rent and that kind of stuff? And he said, sure. So because he called and he was a local, he got cheaper rent. And then he came with me and said he was my husband. And I rented the place, and then he left. and then later, when the landlord came to get the rent, she said, where's your husband? I'm like, oh, he left me. But he didn't, we were never married. He was never my husband, but it was a good way to get.
He did leave. Yeah.
It's really funny. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've also joined like local groups for wherever we're going. And then I'll go on Google Translate and I'll create a post, I'm looking for a place to rent, and I'll just post it in that group. And usually I get a lot of leads that way.
Yeah. Is there places you return to where you that kind of have taken a piece of your heart, or you have a small anchor?
Yes, like we always go back to Dominican Republic because we have so many friends that are like family there,
Yeah.
So we go back there often. But we have other places as well, like Mexico, different places where we have people that we've connected with and really relate to,
Yeah,
My kids are really good at finding grandparents. So they'll say, when can we go see grandma in Italy? And I'll be like, okay, well, we'll arrange that, Or when can we go see grandpa in Mexico,
Yeah, for us as well, we always say the adventure is the people. It's actually not so much about the places, it's about the people. And I think all the nomads I've met, they have places they come back to. We love exploring, but we also love returning, actually. And there's just this rhythm to it. I mean, we travel in a way faster pace than you do. But there's always an element of returning, and usually all of the exploration is moving between this place on the map with people we love and want to spend time with, to that place on the map with people we love and want to spend time with. And then we can like look at it, okay, what's in between? What can we, are there any landmarks or any art museums or any forests or walks we have to do? And we just set aside enough time, and so the journey becomes as a lot of our friends are nomadic as well, some of these dots, they are movable dots, and some of them are places where we keep coming back, where we have a lot of friends. And I think it's there's a nice rhythm to this, like a dance between the new and explorative and learning journey of new languages, cultures, people, places, and then the recognizing and the mirror of how, oh, I remember how I felt last time I was here, and now I'm here again, and I can see how I developed, and I can see how the children have grown, and I get back to my friends and hear their stories as they have evolved since last time we were around. And that's actually really, really nice, I find. Yeah. So it's just a good little rocking boat. Two angles.
Yeah, it's a really good flow, you know.
I know. Can I say something?
Yeah.
I just noted in the beginning of this conversation that I wanted to talk about something Jesper and I have talked about a few times the past few weeks, and that's the concept of world schooling, the word itself. Because we meet, you and I, over this word, well, we didn't meet over that one. We're all three together here because of more or less the word on world schooling, and we've met online because of that. And it's a little bit like the word unschooling, like it's just a word. It kind of talks about what we're not doing more than talking about what we're doing. And we've also met quite a lot of people where we realized this concept of world schooling is very different from what it means to us. So I wanted to ask you, how do you sit with this idea or this word?
For me, I think everybody has their own concept of what it is, you know, because it's not really a set philosophy. You know what I mean? So everybody kind of has their own idea of what it is, you know. And some people think it's just traveling and, you know, and going to all these exotic places and just traveling. But for me, it's like learning from the world. And like, even when we're here in Canada, which is our home country, we're still world schooling because we're checking out places that we've never been before. We're going to, you know, we're exploring new areas. We're, you know, everything's an adventure and exploration, you know. But there are some people who, you know, they'll come on like a world schooling group and they'll say, I want a world school. What's the curriculum? Well, there isn't one, you know, and they really have a hard time with that concept that you can't just buy this book that says world schooling, open it up, and this is the first lesson, this is the second lesson, you know. So yeah, I think it's everybody has their own idea, and more it's how it works for your family. Like how I world school is probably very different from how you world school, which is probably different from how the next person does. You know what I mean?
But I think the concept of world schooling has this intuitive content of, you know, at the very least, you're traveling.
Yes.
Some of the time, moving around.
Right.
And you have children who would normally be in a school setting, who are therefore not in a normal school setting. Some world schools just move around and put their kids in school in different places, which is all good and fine. I kind of like how this concept is not yet been an area of conflict, how it's just this open-minded idea. You do it in whatever way makes sense to you. And the only thing I'm actually expressing that I am doing, if I say I'm world schooling, is that I'm traveling and my kids are not in a traditional school setting because it's impossible. Because
like for me, it's kind of like an umbrella term, you know, just like homeschooling. There's hundreds of different ways to homeschool. You know, there's hundreds of different philosophies. So for me, world schooling is like an umbrella term. You know what I mean? Basically, we're all traveling. We all have kids, and we all want something better for our families, like freedom and that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. About freedom, then Carla said in an episode, Carla Martinez, she said, the amount of freedom you have is the amount of uncertainty you can hold. And I like
It's
that
true.
because, yeah, sometimes you really need to hold that insecurity and uncertainty. But why do you think that you wanted more freedom? What was it in you? I can even, it's not like I can answer the question myself, like what was it? I don't know. I just wanted more out there.
I don't know, like I've always wanted to travel even when I was little. And, you know, like even now, I'm not young, but like, you know, I just don't get it when you ask somebody, like I took a job at a hotel there to make a little bit of money. And this lady, I said to her, "Oh, how long have you been here?" And she said, 42 years. And I'm like, you've been scrubbing toilets in a hotel for 42 years, you know? And that just totally baffled me because I could not imagine doing that for 42 years. Because, like, you know, I'm always like, okay, so like if you ask me where I'm going to be in 3 months, I can't even tell you that, you know, never mind that I'm going to be going to this job for the next 42 years, you know?
But maybe some people find peace in that. I mean, I'm not going to be the
Right,
judge of it.
right,
I
right,
just feel
right.
that my own restlessness, and it's not because I'm running from something. I think we're just all different people, and we don't all fit into the idea of staying in one place. There's always throughout the history of humankind been the
Explorers.
odd ones who were the explorers,
Right.
and I
Right.
think, I mean, I once read unfortunately can't remember where, but I once read some study, anthropological study, saying more or less in a group of humans, you have the 85% that will do what culture is telling them to do, that will do like their parents and the neighbors, and they will just be those who hold the base, who make sure everything is working, that there will be crops on the fields, and there'll be roof on the houses, and, you know, fire for the winter, and it's a good thing. But then you have the 15% who experiment, who do all kinds of crazy stuff, and some of them are the travelers, and some of them invent stuff, and some of them fail, and some of them, what you need for us as humans to evolve, and also therefore be able to adapt to an ever-changing environment, and an ever-changing culture. We can't stop that, so we have to be adaptable, and we are adaptable because of the 15% who are like that. And I think I'm not here to judge those who enjoy to have the same job at the same hotel for 42 years and just know what they're doing, and come home in the evening and make the more or less same cup of tea in the same cup, and just have that peace of mind. I think some people have cut out for that and actually have a good life like that.
Of course they do.
I
But
just
for
can't
me,
do it.
not cut out for that.
No.
No, I get that. Yeah, I get
And
that.
that's where the need for freedom comes from, you know? Like I'm not cut out to work for other people, and I'm not cut out to be stuck in one thing for the rest of my life, you know?
But I'm actually trying to say that I think for some people that steadiness and security of having a base and a job and a husband and a neighbor and the priest and the school teacher and the bus driver, everything, you know, that is freedom. From my psychology and brain, it's hard to wrap my head around. It wouldn't be freedom for me, but I'm just saying my version of freedom, I need to be able to move around.
Right.
I need
But
to be able to
everybody's
pick
version of
myself
freedom
up
is
and
going to
walk
be
out
different.
of it. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, we were in Florida and we were staying in this hotel, and I didn't realize what kind of a hotel it was until after we got there. And I had already paid for 2 weeks at this hotel. Anyway, we were at this hotel and there's this family, and I was like, oh, they might be world schoolers. So everybody goes to the pool and the kids are playing and stuff, and I'm talking to the dad, and he's like, oh yeah, we live here. I'm like, oh, and he's telling me, you should stop what you're doing and you should come live here, like move here and live the American dream. And I'm like, okay, your
Not my
American dream
American
and my
dream.
American dream are totally different.
Yeah.
My dream is
You know,
not American, just for the record.
Yeah.
exactly. My dream is not American. And my dream is not to live in a Motel 6 in Florida in one room and my partner work at Walmart part-time and we collect welfare. That is not my dream. But if that works for you, you go ahead and do that, you know?
Yeah.
But it was funny because they were living outside of what I thought of the norm. And so I assumed they were world schoolers, you know?
Yeah. The boat, what is the does it have a destination or an idea about a destination when it comes into your life? Where is the first, where will you set sail?
We want to head south, like towards Mexico, because we want to go like kind of down the coast, you know, and Central America and places like that.
Yeah, and have you figured out how to sail a boat yet? Because it has been among my dreams, but I'm like, how more difficult can it be than driving? But probably some.
We've actually decided not to get a sailboat, but to get like a motorized boat. So like a trawler. It's got 2 big motors underneath, and because there's a really big learning curve on sailing, and I don't know if I want to learn to sail at this point in my life, you know, but I could drive a boat. So
I'll be curious to follow that transition. That's interesting. Yeah.
And we're not buying a new boat. So it'll be an older boat. And so like, we'll be on Vancouver Island. So we'll have time to make it into whatever we want and then start going, you know? To me, that's part of the fun too, is creating it into what you want and then heading off, you know?
Oh yes.
Yeah, well, to me it's not, to be honest.
Yeah, Cecilia is not a builder.
4 van conversions, like 3 van conversion and 1 bus conversion, and I officially hate it. Hate every single moment of it. It's the worst. I hope I'm never doing it again. But I know I am doing it again because I live in vehicles, apparently. I just really hate the work.
Right.
It's just, no, I don't even want to go there. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah.
Anytime I say, I got a great idea, my partner goes, oh no, because my great ideas are sometimes quite out there. A couple of years ago, I said, we could go to Colombia and we could buy 2 tuk-tuks and we could make them into like little campers and we could travel around in them. He's like, okay. He's willing to do everything. I said to him one time, I said, I'm afraid that you just do all these adventures with me because you're afraid that I'm just going to go do them anyway. He said, I know you would just go do them anyway, but I want to do them. I'm like, okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we met when I was on my way to Honduras. So he's like, where are you going? Honduras. To do what? I don't know, hang out.
Yeah. That sounds nice. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Check it out. Never been. Why not? You know?
Christie, for people who are like, oh, traveling for 13 years with your kids, that sounds awesome. But I have no idea where to start. What is the normal advices? I know you mentioned some of them, but when you meet people and they ask you, so what is it you suggest them?
I usually suggest coming up with some sort of online income before you leave. That's my first thing. Don't do what I did and just leave with nothing and hope you make it, because I mean, you probably will make it, but it's not worth the stress. And then just go. Like, because so many people say, okay, in 5 years, I'm going to go world schooling because I need to have this and I need to have this and I need to have this and I need to have this. Like they have this long list of things that they need to have figured out. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, but if you wait until it's perfect, you're never going to go, you know? And if you set the goal for that far away, by the time you get there, there's going to be something else that's sidetracked you on the way, you know?
Yeah.
Just go.
We usually also say just get the ambition down. If you want to go traveling, why don't you just drive to the next city over and sleep in the back of your car and go for a walk somewhere where you've never been and see how that feels. Doesn't have to be, or
Across the
go
world.
visit some friends, you know, in the other end of your own country if it's a small one. It doesn't have to be across the world. You don't have to sell everything and make the perfect backpack with exactly 57 things in it or any other Instagram trendy kind of band conversion. You can actually just go. You've got feet. So yeah, this and then check it out, see how it feels, come up with, because your world will change once you start doing it. So all the ideas you have before you leave, it's a little waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, we did it, everybody did it before they left, they put some thought into it, but the reality is that the world is actually changing when you start living in a nomadic way rather than a based way.
And I also tell people to like once you get this goal of, let's say, I want to buy a boat, you know, for example, then start living like you're already living that dream. So like now Christmas is coming. I'm going to buy my kids stuff that they're going to need on the boat, you know? So like if you have a dream of, I don't know, backpacking with your family, then for the kids' birthdays, you know, you buy them each a backpack. For Christmas, you know, they get a tablet to use while they're traveling, you know, things like that. And like if I have to go buy myself new pants, I'm not going to go buy myself, you know,
anything white. Just forget
yeah,
about
or
white.
anything that you would wear in the city. I'm going to buy myself like hiking pants. I'm going to buy
Yes.
myself stuff that dries quick, you know, all of those kinds of things. But then your mind is in that goal, and you're still thinking about it, and then you're closer to getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go camp out on the living room floor one night. Just break things up.
Yeah.
Do them in a different way. That's I mean, see how flexible you can become.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of the things I really love with our it's more or less like a snail house, a house on the back with the van we have, is that our relationships has changed with the people we visit, from visiting to living together. That's such a big difference. That and I mean, just staying over with friends could be and camp out in their living room just to break this normal where you come and are together for 3 or 4 hours. That's like a really good start to really get into a deep talk and understand your friends and family in a good way.
But also just handle these things like, you know what, you're going to make your coffee in a new way in the morning and you're going to be really tired while you do it. And you might not be able to find your shoes when you're trying to walk out of the house. And you might have to eat something different for breakfast. And maybe when the phone rings, you can't answer it because something else has happened that you couldn't really know. And all these, you just become so flexible and adaptive by living in this way. And that you can work on before actually leaving. Just
right.
Yeah, and maybe by going to stay over with some friends, or just do something different.
Yeah, or you know, for years, like since 2005, I've known that I wanted to travel. And so I signed up as a host for couch surfing because I wanted to meet people who were actually doing it. So they would come and stay in my house, and it was like, this is awesome. I get to talk to them about their country. I get to, you know, all of these things, you know, and my kids got to experience people from different cultures and who spoke English, but maybe not the same English that we speak. And, you know, it was just great for them, you know.
We did the exact same thing, just with Workaway. We had Workaways in our home.
Yeah.
people from everywhere coming, and
It's
they
such
just
a
helped
big
me out in the
inspiration.
kitchen a little bit, some of them more, some of them less, but it meant that we had travelers in our home for several years before we left. It was the same, and it was great. And another way of breaking up your idea about how every day is, because suddenly you have one more person in your home, and that just adds to the dynamic and the ideas about how life can be, and you get great conversations. And yeah,
Well, and it
it's a good
also
trick.
is like, so you have let's say you have two people staying in your home, you know, and you're like, okay, so I was going to make this for dinner, and they say, oh, I don't eat that. Could we have this? Well, I don't know how to make that. Well, I can show you. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But
Mm.
it's being adaptable and realizing that things can change, and you know,
Yeah.
all of these things, right?
Yeah. Christie, I would love for people who have listened to our podcast with you, if they want to follow along and see if you make a reality of the dream with the boat or one of the other dreams. Where do they find you, and how can they follow along on your adventures?
We are What If It's Amazing on Instagram, and we have a page as well on Facebook. That's What If It's Amazing.
That's a great name for it. I didn't know that.
It's super.
What if?
What if it is
yeah.
amazing?
What
And
if
Because
did it? Yeah.
it started because people always say, you know, what if I hate it? What if, like, all the negatives?
Yeah.
And I'm always like, yeah, but what if it's amazing? What if it
Yeah.
doesn't suck? What if you don't want to go home? Like, what
Yeah.
if, you know, just changing the negative what if to a positive what
Yeah.
if.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that a perfect
What
place
if
to,
it works out like a dream?
yeah,
That is a good
Yeah.
place.
it's a good place to end our podcast for today. Thanks a lot for your time. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope our paths will cross when the time is right.
Yeah,
Yes, for sure.
it was a nice conversation, and nice to finally meet you in real life.
Kind of real life.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.